Dissociative identity disorder has been displayed on the silver screen for years, mostly in the horror thriller categories. DID can be dated back to 1908 when Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde first hit the silent film theaters. Said to be the world's first horror movie, the plot revolves around a young doctor whose experiments led him to reveal a much sinister alter named Mr. Hyde. After creating a potion to separate good and evil, Dr. Jekyll discovers his evil side in Mr. Hyde, who battles for control of the spotlight from Dr. Jekyll, eventually winning in the end. From the beginning of cinema, media has portrayed multiple personalities in a negative light, that the alter ego would somehow be evil or be the antagonist of the storyline. Media has stigmatized mental illness for over a century, not only with portraying mental illness sufferers as villains, but even dramatizing environments such as asylums to look like evil places. What often occurs in films such as Fight Club, the protagonist has an enlightening moment when they realize that they are the cause of the destruction in the movie and that they may have another personality that they are not aware of, that the alter has been causing all the distress the whole time. One of the first films that may come to mind when associating DID and media is the miniseries Sybil from 1976. Originally a book based on true events, the series follows a woman with 16 personalities who seeks help from a psychiatrist about her blackouts, which later turn out to be her alters taking over the light. It's later discovered that the alters appeared after years of abuse at the hands of her mother. Sybil is one of the only films that does not make the lead with DID out to be the villain. When a mental illness is represented in film, 70% of the characters are perceived to be dangerous. Roughly 6% of films represent schizophrenia, and DID is the same thing, and 60% give the illusion that psychosis and DID are also the same thing. In a study done of 33 films, 23 of them indicated DID as a psychosis disorder. Films often depict the protagonist as being in a psychosis when criminal acts are performed, later coming to light that it was the lead's alter ego performing the acts. This in turn teaches the audience that the psychosis and dissociative identity disorder is the same thing. By confusing the two, it can lead the audience to believe that they are one disorder and someone suffering from either illness may be delayed in seeking treatment due to the representation of the illness in the media. Media generally portrays those with mental illness in movies as lonely, isolated, and have little hope for the future. Their characters almost never have a positive outcome, leaving audience members to associate negative outcomes with mental illness in reality. DID is often chosen for a storyline because of the elaborate and dramatic story that they can make out of it. DID actually appears more in cinema than it does in reality. The main character rarely seeks or receives mental illness help, and if they do, they somehow have a quick and miraculous recovery, which can lead audience members to believe that if they suffer from DID, that they too can recover quickly. Cyberbullying on social media outlets such as Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube can lead to increased hostility, anger, and dissociative behaviors. Cyber attacks during early developing ages can later be described as childhood trauma, which then increases the chances of dissociative behaviors. After watching movies like Fight Club or Glass, people like to take to social medias to share their insights on the matter or ask questions about the presented illness. A significant amount of people took to social media to share their opinions and reviews of the movie. Dissociative, a YouTube channel which addresses mental illness, but most specifically DID, was inundated with accusations and comments on whether DID is real and whether all those who live with DID have a beast or a headwig like they do in Split. Split and Glass revolve around a young man with multiple alters that kidnap 3 girls and attempt to feed them to the beast, the strongest alter, which is another example of how Hollywood represents DID sufferers as the villain. Audiences watch movies about DID and, due to the nature of the film, believe that this could be the sad truth of DID and that all DID sufferers are villains.